This episode of the Creep Street Podcast is brought to you by Martini Coffee Roasters. You know, people always look at me weird when I say I start off every morning with a big old martini. But then I set them straight, and I tell them I'm talking about Martini Coffee Roasters coffee. A delicious coffee made by the Martini family. They roast their coffee using a traditional method of sight and sound to roast those little babies to perfection. And they also sell green coffee beans for those home roasters out there. And right now, fans of the Creep Street Podcast can get 20% off their entire order by using the code CREEPSTREET at martinicoffee.com. Once again, for 20% off your order, use the code CREEPSTREET at martinicoffee.com. Martini Coffee Roasters, the perfect coffee to keep you creeps caffeinated.
You've taken a wrong turn down Creep Street.
Citizens of the Milky Way, my name is Dylan Hackworth.
I'm Maureen Bogey.
And this is Creep Street. Real quick up top, please follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Creep Street Podcast, Twitter at Creep Street Pod. On our Facebook, there is another group called Citizens of the Milky Way. It's a little place we like to interact with all of our listeners, post funny stories. Anyone's welcome to that. You just go to our Facebook page and then find the other page, Citizens of the Milky Way. Click that. One of us will let you in.
That's right.
Of course, if one episode a week is just not enough for you,
you need more.
That's right. We all need a little bit more. Head to patreon.com/Creep Street Podcast, and you can find all sorts of goodies there. And before we go any farther, let me read to you the names of our top tier Patreon subscribers.
Please do, Dylan. You know I need it, and you know I need it bad.
Of course, the Dream, James Watkins, the Finnish Face via Alungfist, the Madman Marcus Hall, the Vivacious Vicky McHugh, the Tenacious Teresa Hackworth, the Heartbreak Kid Chris Hackworth, the oh-so-suave Sean Richardson, the British Bone Breaker Bex Martin, the Notorious Nicholas Barker, the Terrifying Taylor Lashmat, the Count of Cool Cameron Corliss, the Archduke of Attitude Adam Archer, the Sinister Sam Kiker, the Nightmare of New Zealand Noeline Vivilli, the Leviathan Levi Mace, and the Loathsome Johnny Love.
Wow, it sounds better every time, doesn't it?
It sure does. Gets better every week, baby. Oh, before we get started, wanted to give a little shout out to one of our listeners who listens to us on YouTube. He goes by the YouTube name Bob Bobber, but after we did our Cult of Unarius episode last week, he shared with us something cool. He said he grew up just up the road from their temple in El Cajon, and he said he visited once. We asked him what it was like. He said it was kind of like going to a live-action role-play sci-fi convention, but with the worst costumes and even worse tacos.
Oh, shit.
So interesting. Thank you,
Wow.
Bob, for sharing that with us.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Very dedicated listener. Very nice guy. Listens
Yes.
to us on YouTube. Great
That's
guy.
the intel that we love to hear about.
Absolutely.
These are these little things that no matter how much research you do, you're not going to really know about the taco content.
That's
or the
true.
quality of the taco content, and we love to hear it.
Absolutely. So thank you, Bob. Maureen, what are we talking about today?
Today, we're heading east.
That's right.
We are going to the lovely, beautiful Japan.
That's right. Last one we did there was the Miyazawa family murders.
Yes, that was the last time we journeyed over to Japan. I loved our Miyazawa family episode.
Yes.
It's a great episode. But, it's about a murder. It's a little
real
sad.
true crime.
This is a little bit of a different vibe. This is kind of a little similar to a swang.
Oh, yes.
Today we are talking about the lovely, all-encompassing, or largely encompassing
Yes.
yokai.
Yokai. Big shout out, my little sister Sarah Hackworth recommended this
Yes.
episode. We were originally going to do it back in February, but Bridgeport ended up becoming a two-parter, and it pushed things back a little bit. But finally, we are getting to it. Sarah Hackworth, this one's for you.
Thank you so much. We love you. I don't mean to brag, but I
Please.
had some pretty great sources.
Well, let's hear those sources.
One is a lovely book called The Book of Yokai, and it is by Michael Dylan Foster.
Ooh.
Also, a YouTube video entitled Yokai Are Not Japanese Ghosts from a lovely YouTube series called Let's Ask Shoujo, Your Japanese Friend in Kyoto.
Oh.
It is a Japanese man that has spent a good amount of time in the US.
Right.
So he kind of breaks down Japanese culture in a way that specifically Americans can kind of really jive with, which
Right.
is very helpful.
He's got a very cool YouTube channel. Very
Yeah.
cool stuff.
Another website from ranker.com. It's called The Creepiest Japanese Monsters and Demons and the Stories Behind Them by Christopher Myers. And finally, a incredible website. It is just called yokai.com. And it is a incredible database of information and illustrations on so many different yokai. I mean, there are hundreds and hundreds,
Yes.
probably even thousands of yokai.
The impression I get is that there's almost unlimited yokai.
Right.
It
There can be more that can be created at any time.
that can be created in time, which is what's so fun about this is
Yes.
it's not like a locked in. Well, it's got such a history of known cemented cultural stories, but you can kind of add to it too, which is
Right.
fun. It's a really, and I think that's part of why it allows it to adapt throughout the generations. Because here's the other thing: I had always heard that, I always knew that like certain things like Pokemon, stuff like that, was inspired by yokai.
Mm-hmm.
But since you started doing research for this, I didn't realize the sheer from films, video
Yes.
games, books. How many things are inspired by yokai that you wouldn't even think
Yes.
were inspired by yokai? They don't even seem like they're any way related to Japanese culture.
Right.
It's just such a, and I think even now as information is more freely passed about, we're probably going to see a lot of it more.
Exactly.
It's such a cool thing that's inspired so much culture, even outside of Japan.
Right. And it really affects too the storytelling within Japan and then also outside of Japan, but just ways that Japanese culture has inspired it. For example, a lot of different horror movies or J-horror kind of play off of some yokai, and there are lots of American horror movies that kind of play off of J-horror. And so they in turn start referencing or using yokai in the movie where some American audiences might have no idea that that's
Right.
even what's happening.
Exactly.
A little sneak peek for a little bit later in this episode, but The Ring, the movie The Ring, with Naomi Watts.
Naomi Watts, that's right.
I forgot her name, God bless her. That is actually a yokai story.
Wow. I knew it was based on a Japanese
Right.
film, but I didn't know that creature itself was based on a yokai.
Exactly.
Wow.
So we're going to get there.
Very cool.
Now, yokai has really only been formally in my world or in my mind within the past few months, I would say, maybe like, or a year,
Right.
I guess. Before then, I really had no idea what these guys are. So if you're
Exactly.
like, what are Dylan and Maureen even talking about?
Oh, yeah.
That's okay. We're going to pop to it right friggin' meow.
Hell yeah.
Here we go. So, as we said, yokai is a very broad umbrella term for basically anything that is unexplained or supernatural. But it's even more wide than that. It's not only that it's just supernatural things that maybe we in America might think of it, like ghouls and ghosts and witches and goblins and things like that. Those
Right.
are in there, but then there's also different things that you wouldn't even maybe consider paranormal. It's just kind of unexplained.
Right.
For example, sometimes when you're in your house, you're getting ready to go to sleep and you just kind of hear noises around the house and you don't really know what it is. It's like, is it the plumbing? Is it a little rodent?
Right.
Is it nothing? What is it? There's actually a name for this in Japanese culture within the yokai realm, and they are called yanare, which means house sounders or house squeakers. So this kind of phenomenon of something that is unknown can be turned into a yokai,
Interesting.
which I think is just so cool. And in that situation, I just think that sounds really cute.
That is
just
really
little
cute.
cute little guys in your house just kind of fiddling around and making squeaks.
You'll find that these yokai run the gamut of they are literally a physical threat, like they'll kill you and
Right.
eat you, to
They're just kind of cute little guys.
cute little people. Yeah, it's such a wide net.
I have heard two different things about ghosts, about Japanese ghosts, which are called yurei or yurai. Once again, we gotta say it.
Right.
Japanese, I don't speak it, but I try. So I'm so sorry if I'm saying any of these terms wrong, but we are giving it our best shot.
Right.
So, yurai is a ghost, meaning, kind of like the way that we understand it. It is someone who was alive, and this is their spirit that has some sort of unfinished business on our plane.
Right.
Some people say that that is a completely separate thing from yokai, and some people think that that is kind of within yokai.
Interesting.
Kind of
Okay.
depends on who you ask.
Right.
Some people would say that a ghost itself isn't a yokai, but there are some yokai that were originally people and through their negative actions or
Right.
whatever are turned into this like negative yokai, like a monster. There's lots of different kinds of yokai like that.
Kind of like a Wendigo. How a Wendigo,
Yes.
obviously a Wendigo is it's a much more narrow thing.
Right.
It's like one thing. So some people could turn it just from being an asshole.
Exactly. Some people say that for sure is yokai, but just, a dang ghost is
Right.
not a yokai. Some people say a ghost is a yokai, a yurei is a yokai as well.
Right.
Kind of depends on who you ask. Now, kind of similarly to that, monsters are also considered to be yokai. However, someone like Godzilla/Gojira, as they call him there
Right.
in Japan, he would not be considered a yokai.
Interesting. Okay.
And I believe that's because he does not come from any sort of kind of like a folklore background.
I see.
Like, even though there are new yokai that can be created by, an artist or an
Right.
author or something like that, the idea is that it kind of has a background in either Japanese story, Japanese folklore, or kind of something like that, whereas Godzilla has kind of its own origin story
Right.
that's kind of its own separate world.
Right.
So it's kind of interesting. The world of yokai is so broad, but there is a little bit of debate in what constitutes a yokai
Right.
and what does not constitute a yokai. I kind of think when in doubt, it's a yokai. But the good news is, if you get it wrong and it's not actually a yokai, it's okay. Everyone understands. We're just trying to learn more about these spooky, scary, but also maybe cute guys.
Yes.
And that's okay.
Absolutely.
There is no judgment here. That's what we're trying to say. Just go out and just enjoy it. Don't let the haters bring you down. So the history of yokai goes way, way back to ancient Japan. One of the first written accounts of yokai go all the way back to the 8th century. These guys have been around for a while. They've kind of been popping off. They, of course, could have been referenced before the 8th century, but that's just the earliest written account that we have. But they were talked about and written about up into medieval Japan.
Mm-hmm.
And these scrolls and these papers started to become easier to come by.
Right.
So there were more yokai content,
Right.
basically. Just there were illustrations done of yokai and that were more widely accessible to everyone. And then in the Edo period, which is from around the year 1600 through 1868.
Uh-huh.
This is like a big time in Japanese history where it's kind of this like if I'm getting any of this incorrect, any of my Japanese history buffs out there, feel free to correct us here. But this was a big time for Japan, really in all ways, culturally,
Kind of like a renaissance in a
yeah,
way?
it was kind of renaissance-y for
Right.
them. It was a
They
big
were kind
time.
of rediscovering and a rejuvenation.
Yes, and it was kind of, if I'm thinking of this correctly, it was a largely peaceful time
Right.
as well. So Japan was thriving at this time, and so during this time, again, this kind of put the light under the yokai fire even more,
I
kind of getting
see.
more popular. And
Right.
people telling spooky horror stories, kind of essentially campfire stories,
Right.
was really popular at the time, and it was a big form of entertainment, and it was basically equivalent to how we like to watch horror movies today. That is also how yokai became even more ingrained in the culture and became popular. And it really remained that way through the years, but it especially during, I believe, the 80s and the 90s is when yokai really really blew up,
Like
kind of
outside of
outside
Japan.
of Japan. Yeah.
Right.
With a lot of like anime, manga,
Yeah.
it just was able to spread throughout the world, and it just became much more popular. And of course, with the advent of the internet and things like that, things were able to travel quicker and ideas and stuff. But really, a big thing is video games, anime, manga, Pokemon. There's a show called Yokai Watch.
Right.
So kind of during that time is when is how people outside of Japan, that's kind of why and how we
Right.
know of yokai today. A lot of this goes back to, I believe it's the original religion of Japan, or one of the earliest religions of Japan, called Shintoism. And it was a polytheistic religion, and it also involved animism in the religion. Basically saying that objects around us, as well as nature and elements, have their own personality and consciousness, things like that.
I believe we have a few listeners who are animists.
Yes, we do. Yes. Shout out to you. We love you.
Yeah.
So kind of this history kind of being there with the Japanese people and the Japanese culture, it kind of permeates through, and that makes sense why Japanese people kind of took to making explanations for things that were happening or things that they were seeing that were unexplained, and kind of explaining it through giving these things a voice and a personality and wants and likes and dislikes and all that. So to touch on a little bit what we were saying before, yokai aren't just animal type beings. It's not like they are only a biological entity. They also can represent or can be a feeling that you have. One is like the feeling that when you're going to the bathroom in the middle of the night and you're scared, that's a yokai we're going to talk about.
Wow. Even specific feelings, not
Yes.
just like
Sadness.
anxiety.
Right. There's a yokai called Nurikabe, and basically it's the idea of hitting a wall. They personify this feeling, so it's a physical wall that you often will see at night that you can't pass.
Right.
And illustrators have given it, like eyes and legs and arms. This character or this yokai has been in so many different children's books and in movies and TV shows. It's very popular, but it's so funny. It's like literally the sensation of when you quote unquote hit a wall, and they make it like a real wall.
Wow.
But it's so funny that I don't know if Japan had that phrase, I hit a wall.
Right.
Like, I don't know if that's just a Western phrase or if they had that
Right.
phrase and that's how
And
they
then we
made the
got-
yokai, or if it was just that sensation that you feel like you're hitting a wall and that's why they...
Coined
The term?
Wow. Yeah, that's fascinating.
If we have any runners out there, they can kind of understand this feeling that there really is a point in your run or whatever that you feel like you just can't go on
Right.
any longer. It is an actual like biological function. It's something with like glucose or like, I don't know. Science is hard, but
Right,
it's
right.
like a thing that's happening to your body. I think that's amazing that then that sensation is itself a
Wow.
yokai.
It
So
just shows like what a broad
yes.
net this is.
So it's like kind of like creatures, which we'll get to, feelings like that. And another facet of a yokai is that it can also represent an event
Oh, wow.
that is going to happen or that is happening. For example, there is one yokai that's called Clerusoma, and it's the idea that you hear a tree falling, but there is no tree that has fallen.
Interesting.
The main thing that the book of yokai, that my main source for this week, the way that they kind of separated it was event, presence, and object. An object kind of also means like an animal or, whatever like that.
Right,
Really,
right.
the only thing is that it needs to be strange, unexplained, a little bit out of this world.
Very
Yes.
nice. Okay.
And kind of how we've said so far, some of them can be extremely harmless.
Right.
Some of them can be harmless, but still kind of creepy.
Right.
Some can be truly just cute and like you want it. Some of it is real murderous beings that
Right.
actually want to cause you harm or to kill you or things like that. There is a huge range. One thing that I find very interesting is that all yokai, they kind of share a liminality or in-betweenness.
Okay.
And this is something we have talked about before. This is very popular. This is like a common thread in all sorts of paranormal things.
Right,
That it's like
right.
when you're kind of in an in-between zone.
Absolutely.
Like literally, like if you are... at the edge of town. Like you're kind of in one area, but you're kind of in another area.
Right.
A crosswalk. Literally, just that. We talked about that with
like
our ritual games.
At a crossroads, yeah.
Yes, that's a game that it's in our, I think Ritual Games Part 2 is where we talk about that one. It's
Right.
another Japanese ritual game where it's involving a crossroads, because that is where a lot of this activity is said to be.
Absolutely.
As well as bridges, tunnels, thresholds. They're often seen at twilight, so kind of the in-between between
Right.
the day and night. And then also, I think they call it the ox's hour or the ox time, but it's basically the witching hour.
Okay.
It's at like 2 or 3 in the morning.
Interesting. And
Yes.
Okay, that's interesting.
Which I love. I love it when these things kind of overlap with each
Yeah.
other. And some of it, of course, is like cultures influence each other.
Absolutely, right.
But some of this was before there was really any major interchange between the East and the West.
Exactly.
So it's so cool to see that like there are some things that are just
universal
and it's completely organic.
Absolutely.
So guys, this is the dope part of the podcast where Mo tries to speak Japanese, baby.
Yes.
We're all gonna love it.
Absolutely. Obviously, as you all know, if we mispronounce anything, and I'm sure there will be mispronounced things, we mean no disrespect. We just don't know how to say certain things, but we're going to try our best.
That's right. That's right. This just is like researching this topic makes me want to go to Japan.
I know.
So
I want to go so
badly.
Especially now that Super Nintendo World is open.
I know. It looks so cute.
Yeah.
Ugh. And speaking of Nintendo, I know for a fact there are many, many Pokemon
Yeah.
that are inspired or just straight up are yokai.
Right.
Which is so cool, and we're going to get to that. Let's just talk about a couple of terms that I think are helpful in the world of yokai, okay?
Okay.
Are you listening?
I'm listening.
Listen to me now. Okay. One is Oni. This one is interesting because kind of going way back, maybe more kind of in the ancient zone, it was kind of known as anything kind of unexplained or scary or
Right.
spooky. But as time has gone on, it is kind of transformed into a specific kind of ogre monster looking guy.
Okay.
It's this kind of human-ish looking guy, but it has horns on its head and has like a bunch of hair.
Interesting.
I've seen this guy in a lot of Japanese restaurants. Like he's been like in illustrations or
Right.
on the wall or whatever. So he comes up a lot, and kind of like I said before, Oni used to mean something a little different too. So sometimes it kind of comes up in its more wide realm as well. Another word is bakemono, and a bakemono is a shapeshifter. So all bakemono are yokai, but not all yokai are bakemono.
Right.
There are a lot of yokai that look like hot ladies, and then they turn into be nasty and will kill you.
Very similar to a manananggal
Yes.
from Aswang of knockout of a gal in
I mean,
the
a
day.
10.
But then at night,
Kind of gets to be a little,
she literally loses her top.
but it's true.
But it's true, yeah.
And there is a yokai that is similar to the Mananangal, and we will get to that in a little bit when we talk about some of our heavy hitters. As I said before, yurei are ghosts. And the thing with Yurei is yu means imprisoned and rei means spirit. So not every person who passes becomes a Yurei. It kind of means if you're stuck on this plane because you have some sort of unfinished business
see.
to attend to. Another word that comes up a lot is Onna, O-N-N-A. And I don't know if that means woman just all the time or if it means woman specifically about these kind of yokai ladies. I'm not sure, but Onna comes up a lot. It's interesting. There are male yokai, like humanoid male yokai, but the female yokai are a little bit sneakier, and I think that's kind of more prevalent for sure. Now that we kind of have an idea of what is a yokai and what is not a yokai,
Right.
I would love now to talk about some of these crazy little fuckers.
Oh, yeah.
Because I've pulled some fun ones that I think we're gonna like.
Some of them are nasty little pricks.
Some of them are little chodes.
Yeah.
But some of them are so cute.
Some of them are real cute.
And I love them. Some of them are just little friends. For example, well, this guy isn't really a little friend, but he might be. I don't really understand what's going on. There is a yokai called Raiju. And basically, he likes to maybe sleep in the belly buttons of people. He kind of likes to be surrounded by human flesh. He is kind of like the little doter, kind of like the little dude of a greater deity. I don't believe the one that's in charge of Raiju, I don't believe he is a yokai. I think he is a deity.
Okay.
And Raiju is a yokai that's kind of his little dude.
Okay.
The main dude, when he wants Raiju back, he will summon him with a lightning bolt. So much so that some people, when there's a thunderstorm outside, they will sleep on their stomachs because they don't want the lightning to strike them when they got a little guy in their stomach.
Exactly.
And this became the one, the only Pikachu.
That's right. Pikachu.
I mean, I think that's so cute.
How wild
A
is
little
that?
Pikachu guy that just kind of hangs out.
Yeah. And
cute.
it sounds like, at first when they said sleeps among flesh, you
It
get this
sounds bad.
I think it's just he likes to nuzzle.
Right.
I don't think it means...
Bless him.
And I'm guessing he's small enough he can fit in your belly button.
Oh my God. I mean, I hate that. Like, I really don't like my belly button being touched, but I do think that is very cute and
Very
exciting. Now, another yokai that has inspired Pokemon is called Kitsune. The Kitsune, I think it literally just means fox.
Okay.
I don't think it means like yokai fox. I think it's just a fox.
Right.
The Kitsune has inspired a few different yokai like Vulpix and Ninetales. In traditional Japanese yokai folklore, these foxes are bakemono, they're shapeshifters.
Right.
But the thing is, they have trouble shapeshifting their tail sometimes. So sometimes they'll be, they can look human, but they got a little bit of a fox tail going on.
Okay,
And that
interesting.
is why that happens in Pokemon as well with these little guys. I guess some of them can transform to look human, but they still got those little fox tails.
Interesting. Okay, very cool.
Which is just so exciting. Now, the Kitsune is really a big, heavy hitter in terms of yokai. Honestly, we could probably do a whole episode just on these dudes.
Right.
But there's something specifically that I think is just incredible that we need to talk about. So this is a phenomenon. So it's kind of its own yokai within a yokai, basically.
Right.
It is called the Kitsune no Yomeri, which is a fox's wedding.
Oh, wow.
I will now quote directly from my source to just give you a little taste of what this is like.
Please.
The expression is used to signify the seemingly contradictory weather phenomenon that occurs when the sun is shining while it is raining. It was at mysterious, paradoxical times like this that foxes got married, or alternatively, it was when the mysterious powers of the foxes that caused such paradoxical meteorological phenomena. In several records from the Edo period, people claimed to have witnessed Kitsune wedding processions. In one case, boat captains were employed to ferry what looked like a noble entourage lit with lanterns across a river. But in the morning, the captain discovered that the money that they had received for their labor had transformed into nothing but leaves. This is a vivid example, but in most cases, the phenomenon was noted simply as a procession of lights seen in the distance. Parades of light may be rare these days, especially in well-lit urban areas. But even today, whenever it is raining and the sun is shining, someone is sure to mention that a fox is getting married.
Lovely.
That's the most important story of my lifetime.
That's a very nice story.
I love foxes so much. I think that's the cutest thing of this generation.
Absolutely.
I love that. Now, for a little bit of a scarier one,
We've all been waiting for this.
let's talk about Kyakutsu. That one, I know I said that one wrong, and I'm sorry. But the Kyakotsu is a ghostly, skeletal spirit which rises out of wells to scare people. It is wrapped in a ragged shroud with only its bleached skull and tangled hair emerging from its tattered clothes. The Kyakotsu, they are formed from bones which were improperly disposed of by being discarded down a well. The bones may come from a murder or a suicide victim or someone who died after accidentally falling into the well. The lack of a proper burial and the egregious disrespect shown by discarding bones in this manner creates a powerful grudge in those bones. Like other ghosts, they pass their grudge onto those they can come in contact with. A Kyakotsu lies at the bottom of its well until it is disturbed. Then it rises up to curse anyone unfortunate enough to be using the well. The Ring alert. This is what I was talking about, where it's like these American horror movies are taking from yokai and we don't even know it.
Yeah, and that's what I meant earlier. Like there was things like Pokemon I always do because that's like a very obvious homage.
Exactly.
Things like that I knew, but there were so many things, not just in games, but movies that are references at least or homages to these things or borrowed from that I didn't realize. It's very fascinating.
Kind of going off of that, there is a yokai called a Onryu, which is a grudge spirit. It is a vengeful ghost, specifically. This is kind of a wide subject, but this is kind of The Grudge, obviously.
Exactly.
If you've seen the movie The Grudge, which was originally Japanese, but then they made an American version as well. And these vengeful spirits, they're often wearing kind of like their funeral garments. They're still wearing what they were wearing either when they died or when they were prepared for cremation. So they're usually wearing like a white kimono with their long dark hair hanging down.
Right.
Once again, I don't know if that's how it still is done, but at least that was how it was during the Edo period, I believe. And so I don't know if it has just moved forward like that or if that is still the custom. I'm not sure. Now let's talk about two of these Transformer ladies. And I don't mean Megan Fox. I mean these Bakemono Onna. A while back, we actually, in our Patreon, we recorded a great story about Yuki Onna, which basically means snow woman. Which is a yokai that appears on very snowy nights. So if you're interested in that, we welcome you to go check that out. It's a great story.
Absolutely.
But two other ones that are very popular and scary are the Yorogumo and the Teketeke. First, we'll talk about the Yorogumo. So the Yorogumo is kind of a woman/spider hybrid. If you guys don't like spiders, you're gonna fucking hate this style. This is Dylan. Dylan hates this. I'm actually okay with it. Surprisingly, spiders aren't the scariest things in the world to me, but just call me. Don't call me a hero. Call me brave. That's all. I'm not a hero. I'm just super fucking brave. In Japan, some spiders are known to possess amazing supernatural powers. One of these is the Yorogumo, known as the Golden Orb Weaver in English. The Yorogumo is the most known of the arachnid yokai, and found all over Japan except for the northern island of Hokkaido. Their body size averages between 2 and 3 centimeters long, but it can grow much larger. Some are massive enough to catch and eat small birds. Renowned for their size, vividly beautiful colors, and their large, strong webs they leave, the beautiful Yorogumo are also famous for the cruel destruction they wreak on young men. But originally, it kind of just meant whore spider.
Whore spider.
You're a spider whore, bitch. That's basically what they're saying. Now, there is an actual spider that is in Japan that kind of inspired the Yorogumo. The Yorogumo lives solitary lives, both as spiders and as yokai. When the Golden Orb Weaver reaches 400 years of age, it develops magical powers and begins to feed on prey instead of insects. Their favorite prey are handsome, young men looking for love or other favors. When a Yorogumo spots a man she desires, she lures him into her home with promises of affection. So first she just seems like a hot lady.
Right.
Then the Yorogumo spins silk threads strong enough to ensnare a grown man so that he cannot escape. And then they use a powerful venom to slowly and painfully kill the man. The Yorogumo can also control other spiders and can employ them to do her bidding. Yorogumo can live in any place. They can live in the city, the countryside, anywhere. There is a story of a Yorogumo being split open and thousands of human heads exited from the spider's body.
Oh, that's so disgusting.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, God, that's horrible.
It's gross. In my opinion, the next story, or the next yokai, puts the Yorogumo to shame.
Oh, boy.
And that is the Teketeke. The Teketeke is the one that I think reminds me a lot of the Mananangal, aka the Aswang that is just a top half of the body with leathery bat wings. This woman that is just flying around searching for prey.
When anything is named twice, and it's the same name.
Yes.
Charlie. Remember the Charlie game?
Yep. But this gal is even more frightening to me. She is the top half of a woman. She has a scythe in her hand, and she is able to move herself along by dragging herself forward with just her hands. And the reason why her name is Teketeke is because it's an onomatopoeia. The idea is that the sound of Teketeke, that's the sound of her palms slapping the ground as she's chasing after you.
Right.
Coming closer and closer to you. I think that is so fucking scary.
Yeah.
And I don't like that sound that is like...
I hate that.
Oh my god, it's going after you. And it probably would sound like that. And these beings, these yokai, are known to be fucking fast. You cannot
very fast.
outrun them. Even in a fucking car.
Right.
They can still chase after you with a tick, 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 tick.
Oh my god.
Oh my god, it is so fucking scary. The Teketeke is a ghost who appears in a number of urban legends. Teketeke are almost always women. She has no lower half and runs on her arms, creating the distinctive Teketeke sound, which she gets her name. Teketeke chases its victims down dark roads. In some variations of the story, the Teketeke carries a sickle. It slices its victims at the waist and steals their legs.
Dear God.
A lot of the story comes from either she accidentally got her legs cut off by a train, she was pushed onto the train tracks to get her legs cut off.
Interesting.
There are kind of a lot of different stories about that. And according to the legend, 3 days after you hear this story, you will see the ghost of a woman with no lower half. She is going to try to catch you, as we said, because she has been known to go up to 150 kilometers per hour.
Dear Lord.
Some say she's searching for legs, while others say she is angry at humanity for not helping her while she was dying, and that she was out there to slaughter as many people as she could.
Oh my goodness.
Some of the stories say that she was cut in half by a train, and a train attendant saw her, and instead of trying to get help to maybe save her life or to just make her death less painless, he just threw a tarp over her and let her die a slow and painful death.
Yikes.
And like I said, shortly after hearing about this story, you might just see her. She will ask you a riddle, either in a dream or in a mysterious phone call. She'll ask you, do you need your legs? And you must reply, I need them right now. If you answer her riddles without a mistake, she might just let you live. And there are so many other yokai. There's one that is literally just an umbrella it's a one-legged umbrella, and it just kind of gets fussy with you if you forget your umbrella somewhere, or if you forget to bring your umbrella somewhere. I mean, literally, they can be so many different things, and we are going to post a few more yokai stories on our Patreon page.
Absolutely.
But we also wanted to send you out today with one stone cold story.
Banger.
A banger. We're going to leave you with a banger. We hope that you enjoy the following yokai story. I hope it's scary, but also spooky, but also kind of fun.
Yes.
Enjoy.
From the book Tales of Japan, Traditional Stories of Monsters and Magic, A Dead Secret.
A long time ago, in the province of Tamba, there lived a rich merchant named Inya Moraya Jinsuke. He had a daughter called Osono. As she was very clever and pretty, he thought it would be a pity to let her grow up with only such teaching as the country teachers could give her. So he sent her, in care of some trusty attendants, to Kyoto, that she might be trained in the polite accomplishments taught to the ladies of the capital. After she had thus been educated, she was married to a friend of her father's family, a merchant named Nagareya, and she lived happily with him for nearly 4 years. They had one child, a boy. But Osono fell ill and died in the 4th year after her marriage. On the night after the funeral of Osono, her little son said that his mama had come back and was in the room upstairs. She had smiled at him, but would not talk to him, so he became afraid and ran away. Then some of the family went upstairs to the room which had been Osono's, and they were startled to see by the light of a small lamp which had been kindled before a shrine in that room the figure of the dead mother. She appeared as if standing in front of a tansu, a chest of drawers that still contained her ornaments and her wearing apparel. Her head and shoulders could be very distinctly seen, but from the waist downwards the figure thinned into invisibility. It was like an imperfect reflection of her, and transparent as a shadow on water. Then the folk were afraid and left the room. Below, they consulted together. and the mother of Osono's husband said, "A woman is fond of her small things, and Osono was much attached to her belongings. Perhaps she has come back to look at them. Many dead persons will do that, unless the things be given to the parish temple. If we present Osono's robes and girdles to the temple, her spirit will probably find rest." It was agreed that this should be done as soon as possible. So on the following morning, the drawers were emptied, and all of Osono's ornaments and dresses were taken to the temple. But she came back the next night, and looked at the tansu as before. And she came back also on the night following, and the night after that, and every night. And the house became a house of fear. The mother of Osono's husband then went to the parish temple and told the chief priest all that had happened, and asked for ghostly counsel. The temple was a Zen temple, and the head priest was a learned old man known as Daigen Osho. He said, "There must be something about which she is anxious, in or near that tansu." "But we emptied all the drawers," replied the woman. "There is nothing in the tansu." "Well," said Daigen Osho, "tonight I shall go to your house and keep watch in that room and see what can be done. You must give orders that no person shall enter the room while I'm watching unless I call." After sundown, Daigen Osho went to the house and found the room made ready for him. He remained there alone, reading the sutras, and nothing appeared until after the hour of the rat. Then the figure of Osono suddenly outlined itself in front of the tansu. Her face was a wistful look, and she kept her eyes fixed on the tansu. The priest uttered the holy formula prescribed in such cases, and then, addressing the figure by the kayamo of Osono, said, "I have come here in order to help you. Perhaps in that tansu there is something about which you have reason to feel anxious. Shall I try to find it for you?" The shadow appeared to give assent by a slight motion of the head, and the priest, rising, opened the top drawer. It was empty. Successfully, he opened the second, the third, and the fourth drawer. He searched carefully behind them and beneath them. He carefully examined the interior of the chest. He found nothing, but the figure remained gazing as wistfully as before. "What can she want?" thought the priest. Suddenly it occurred to him that there might be something hidden under the paper with which the drawers were lined. He removed the lining of the first drawer. Nothing. He removed the lining of the second and third drawers. Still nothing. But under the lining of the lowermost drawer, he found a letter. "Is this the thing about which you have been troubled?" he asked. The shadow of the woman turned toward him, her faint gaze fixed upon the letter. "Shall I burn it for you?" he asked. She bowed before him. "It shall be burned in the temple this very morning," he promised, "and no one shall read it except myself." The figure smiled and vanished. Dawn was breaking as the priest descended the stairs to find the family waiting anxiously below. "Do not be anxious," he said to them. "She will not appear again." And she never did. The letter was burned. It was a love letter written to Osono in the time of her studies at Kyoto. But the priest alone knew what was in it, and the secret died with him.
That is going to wrap us up for our yokai episode.
Wow, Maureen, thank you for doing all of that research.
Thank you so much. I really love doing it, and I'm sure at some point we are going to circle back to some more yokai stories. Maybe we'll do our list of the top 10 scariest yokai or something like that in the future. We will definitely circle back to this. So if you guys have a favorite yokai, please let us know. DM us on any sort of social media. Email us at creepstreetpodcast@gmail.com.
All right. Well, citizens of the Milky Way, if you want to support this show, go to patreon.com/creepstreetpodcast.
Whoa.
My name is Dylan Hackworth.
I'm Maureen Bogey.
Citizens of the Milky Way, good night and goodbye.